write, either one of them write the note that would accompany the survey to the 10 plus or minus staff members who would be filling out this staff liaison survey. I'm sure that they'll have no problem in doing that. Nina, you have a question?
I would recommend that we draft a paragraph or two of explanation ourselves and offer that to them to include, so that the context is at least partially coming from us, rather than just toss it to them.
Well, yes, we of course would give the explanation of how to do the survey. Let me see what Ben says first and how he wants to do it, and we'll go from there. I don't know if we want to put that in the opening page of the survey, or if we want to include it in his cover memo. I think it might be better to put the explanation of the survey itself with the survey, so that there's a distinction between what he's writing and what we're supplying. But let me see what he says first, and we'll go from there. It's a good suggestion. Anything else before we start talking about these questions?
Yeah, Stacy, I got an email from Sarah Gross when I sent the agenda over, and she passed along two kind of higher level questions about the survey that I said I would share with the group and report back.
Okay.
So for one, she did share a list of, let me get this link for the chat. She shared a list of all the staff liaisons that the city's identified, and it has each board and the liaison listed. This is a great resource. It's 21 people, so it's a bit more than we heard previously.
Okay.
And she had two questions for us. The list includes 4 city-managed quasi-judicial boards. Sarah just wanted to know, do we want to include those liaisons in our list of survey respondents?
Let's see, that would be Board of Adjustments, Civil Service Board, Historic Resources Commission, and Planning and Zoning.
That's correct.
Let's see.
Quick question on that, if I can jump in.
Sure.
Were those boards included when we sent the board member survey?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
I would vote that we not include liaison to those boards.
That's interesting. Nina, what did you have? And we lost her.
I think that we did include them, but we'd have to double check that.
Yeah,
Alan might know.
Alan, you're on mute, Alan.
You're muted.
Can you again repeat their role? These additional names, the 4 names or so.
Board of Adjustments, Historic Resources, Civil Service, and Planning and Zoning.
Well, first of all, Civil Service, I'm the vice chair of that, and we don't have a liaison with us. Well, we have HR that participates in our group, and we're quasi-judicial under state statute. So I'm not sure if that's appropriate. I'd like to know who the name is, by the way, before we approved it.
All right, wait a minute. You're saying you do not have a staff liaison?
HR is the one that directly participates with the Civil Service Board.
And you wouldn't consider that to be staff liaison?
They really have no role with us other than setting up the times of the meetings.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to know who it is and then make a decision if that's all right.
Okay,
Yeah, on the
I'll get into.
document,
Go
it's
ahead.
listed as Shannon Barrett, who I assume is maybe city HR.
That's right. She's director of HR. I can go either way with that.
Okay. Nina,
I think it's really important that planning and zoning be included. That's a tremendously influential board, and participation on that, I think, should definitely be included.
I agree with that.
Jack, you have a different opinion?
No, if there's strong feeling, that's fine.
You're okay with it then?
Yeah, sure. If there's a specific case in particular, if there's, some of the quasi judicial boards are, as such, they're mandated. It's not like they're going to be eliminated if we do a realignment. But in any case, if there are those that we think we want to hear from the liaison, fine with me.
Okay. Hold on a second. So Sarah just wrote back. Hold on a minute. Okay, so Sarah's going to be out of the office next week. If we could finalize this questionnaire tonight, then we could send it to her and it could go out before the holiday. How do y'all feel about that?
I think we have every chance to get the survey finalized tonight. I think we can do that.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Ted. I didn't see you had your hand raised.
Yeah,
What you got?
right. Okay. So I'm going to respectfully disagree here. Now planning, I'm going to show my ignorance a little bit, but planning and development, is that comparable to the planning commission? Is that essentially the planning commission, or is that something different?
Planning and zoning.
This is
Planning and zoning, right.
zoning board.
Yeah. Because if that is essentially the planning commission, then that's a mandated board with firm support and firm liaison with city council. Same thing with board of adjustment. I think.
Ted, hold on. Remember, these are the quasi judicial ones, so they do have a higher level.
Yeah. I sort of don't think. I would say that those are not within the scope of what we're doing. That they're not really sort of voluntarily set up advisory boards like the other boards and commissions are. They are essentially a part of the functioning of city government. They are just, they're rather than being line under the city manager, they have this, this sidebar connection, but they are, they are, pretty functional to the workings of city government. So I don't think that that's really what we're concerned about.
I would also like.
But they are filled by volunteers.
Well,
so the people who are on those boards are volunteers.
They are volunteers in the sense. Yep.
I was going to make a clarification on civil service. Two of the members, which I'm one of the two, are elected by city employees on civil service. Two of them are appointed by city council, and the chair is elected by the group. So it's a different composition than some of the other boards as a quasi-judicial. Now, I'm not sure how an individual becomes a volunteer, becomes a member of the P&Z. It's very technical, and you really have to have a background in city ordinances to really understand the issues that they cover. So again, I'd like to know more about how appointments are made on that board, but Nina, you're shaking your head.
I mean, people apply to be on planning and zoning. It's the same process as pretty much any other board and commission. People apply and city council appoints. It's,
Right.
they're citizen participants.
And of course, preferably the ones who get on are those who have a higher level of knowledge about planning and zoning or building and architecture and land development and that sort of thing. Patrick and then Ted.
Yeah, my perspective on this question is that, especially since we're doing this with the survey, why not include those staff liaisons as well? Even if we have to remember in doing our analysis, we might want to consider those responses differently. I think it would be helpful to know how the responses from those staff liaisons may be similar or different from the other ones that the city that staff other city boards. So I personally think we should include it, and I don't think there's a lot of harm in doing so.
Ted, what do you think?
Yeah, I can see that point. I think from the perspective of knowing that these boards and commissions are very different, that we can include them from the standpoint of like, okay, how are these core to the city's functioning boards and commissions treated versus the others? But and then to your point about there being volunteers, they are volunteers, but only in a technical sense, and only in the sense that they are like not being paid for their participation. They're, I mean, typically, and I don't think I would be surprised if Asheville is different, but typically appointments to these quasi-judicial boards are like highly vetted by city council, and they're akin to the school board before the school board was elected.
Well, and to me, you've just undergirded what I was going to say is that I think this supports our statements that or our assumptions that we've made, is that when you effectively vet the members that are on these boards and commissions, and you have a highly trained staff liaison with a competent board chair, then it runs better and people have a more satisfactory and therefore more effective experience on their board service. And by bringing these four in, which that follows, it might be a way for us to be able to juxtapose some of these assumptions that we've made about why some of these board experiences have been so poor.
Okay, I can see that. I think we should keep that in mind when we get into the analysis phase.
Well, one of the things that I think that we need to make sure of is that when they're finished, when they're filling out their survey, if they don't fill in the name of their board that they're responding about, then they can't go any further. It won't let them go to the next question until they give a name. Am I making myself clear? That on that question, they have to fill that in. Is this, I'm responding because I sat on the such and such board or something like that. Jack?
I think that solves our problem. Include those liaison members. They're going to be identified by board. And just like the a member survey. We can separate responses by board if necessary. So we can take those quasi judicial boards, analyze them independent of all the others, and have those two groups separate if we find especially that their responses are significantly different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think let's include them all.
Okay. All right, Patrick, I'll respond to Sarah and let her know that we do want to include those.
Okay. I
Let's
do have
see
a
what else.
second question if you want
Okay.
me to pose this one.
Sure.
The second question is that the staff liaison document lists the primary contact, which is typically the managing staff liaison to the board. Additionally, some departments have support staff that help with board administration, such as posting materials and meeting technology. Does the working group want the survey to be sent to the managing and or administrative support staff?
Yeah. I would say both too.
Yeah, I think both.
Both? Okay. Does anyone feel that we shouldn't include those support staff?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. So, and Stacy, do you want me to send these questions to you so that you have them to respond to Sarah?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay. I will do that.
In general, I
right.
think it's in our interest to get the broadest possible view while we have the opportunity. If we get back data that just doesn't make sense for us to use, we can explain that and set it aside. But I'd rather have more than we need than not everything that we need.
I agree. Absolutely. Okay. Patrick, do you want to pull up the questions and let's go through them and see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Is this legible for everyone?
Uh-huh.
And Stacy, just to clarify, at the last meeting, we were able to go through and review all the questions except for the 3 at the end. So we can go through
Okay.
the full list again, or we can jump to the end. I'll leave it to your judgment which way you want to proceed.
Well, let's go to the end and get those to the same level of the rest of them, and then we'll go back to the top.
Okay.
So we have number 9. If this board's input is not considered in the city's decision-making processes, what could contribute? Oh, okay. If this board's input is not considered in the city's decision-making process, what could contribute to achieving this objective? If this board has not made actionable recommendations, what would contribute to the board achieving this objective? So, we talked earlier that every board isn't going to have actionable recommendations every year. And that's not necessarily a black mark against the work that they are doing. It could be that they are just maintaining or overseeing or moving forward some things that don't need to have actual recommendations right at that moment. So bear that in mind, because either as to which of these questions you want to choose, or which of these questions, that you want to use. Any input?
I find the double wording of this really confusing. I don't understand what 2 different things are. If there are 2 different things being asked, why are they not 2 different questions? If they're not 2 different things.
One or the other, Nina. They're saying, do you want to use the term decision-making processes or actionable recommendations?
Well, one
Not-
is a systemic question and the other is a functional question for a specific board. So if the board's input isn't considered, then they could make all the actionable recommendations in the world, but they wouldn't get considered. And if they are considered, but they don't make actionable recommendations, then they're not going to get considered either. So do you see what I'm saying?
Sort of. Jack, what's your thought?
I just messaged Patrick. I made some comments on these late questions that are not showing up on what he's pulled up.
They're over here on the left. Patrick, is there a way to show those?
I can scroll over, but I don't see any ones on 9 through 11 from Jack. So I'm not sure.
Let me
I
see.
see-
Hold on. I've got the comments printed out here
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I don't see any for those questions either, Jack. Do you want to restate what you were thinking, or did you totally forget what you said?
No, I'm looking at it on my screen, so maybe.
Okay, well, what was it
Oh.
that you were concerned with? Huh.
Jack, if you can see them on your screen, can you copy a link to the chat of that document? I just want to make sure we haven't diverged which version we're all editing.
Yeah, I just clicked on share, which may change what you have. Because I went to your link and I was editing that. And I'm confused. No, I get it.
Oh,
All right. Well, let me just state what I've got printed in front of me.
well, now it's showing
Okay.
now.
Okay, so I failed to hit the comment word.
Right, I see them showing up now, so I guess
I didn't
you're
know-
copying them over.
Didn't realize I had to hit the comment. Yeah, so this number 9, I thought both of the wordings presented are just confusing. And in my comment, make a suggestion as to a possible replacement for this question. Which is, I guess if you can read it now, what changes, if any, would you recommend in order for this board to have greater influence on council decisions? And I think since it's about the board interaction with council, it should follow question 7, which is all about how the board interacts with the council.
I'm just looking at number 7. What changes, if any, would you recommend in order for this board to have greater? I like that, Jack. What about the rest of y'all? Just speak out. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah, my issue with number 9 is that it kind of is 2 questions in one, and I don't really like that. I think that what Jack has proposed is a more straightforward and positive way. It hits on the council decision-making process. And I guess after thinking it through, I guess it does capture both parts of number 9. So I would support that revised version.
And I agree that it should be after question number 7. And I like kind of interspersing some of these with the fast likers. Any other comment, input on this change?
Yeah, my main concern here is you're asking staff to say what changes would make a board have more influence on council. And that's a pretty big reach.
Why?
Well, because it's sort of asking staff to read council's mind.
Isn't that what they do every day?
I don't think so.
I think they try to. It may not be effective, but this staff, they're the ones who work the closest with council, probably more than anyone, and they're in a position, whether they are asked this question or not, they are in a position, they see both sides of it. They see the residents, the volunteer side, they see the staff and the council side of it. They're in the catbird seat as far as what they see is happening and what they see is not happening. We're just asking their opinion. We're not asking them to go out on the road and sell the idea yet. Ted?
Yeah, I think that this question provides an opportunity for the staff to either identify things that they see in the board that are sort of making the board ineffective with respect to their influence on council, or on the other hand, give them a chance to say, well, council really isn't paying attention to this board. Council really doesn't think it's important. So, yeah, I think the question's a good one. It can, yeah.
We lost you there for a second. You said you think it's a good one.
I agree with the question. I think it's
okay.
Functional.
Okay.
Oops.
Can I see a thumbs up or something on this to move forward with this question from the rest of you?
We're moving forward with Jack's revised version.
Yes. What changes, if any, would you recommend? And putting it with tying it to number 7, or having it placed after number 7. And I've just made a note of that, Patrick. You don't have to try to move it. I know this isn't the easiest document to work with. Let's see. So number 10, what could improve communication? Oh, that's a pretty broad one. And Jack, I see that you've got something on that too, and I can't see what it says. Can you fill us in a little bit? Jack, sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah, it says, just to extend that question, what could improve communication among board and council members? Which is still pretty broad, but a little less broad.
Okay, that's probably good. Should we have that? I think we should have that right after the last question we just discussed. Well, okay, wait. Then we have question number 8, though, says, how would you rate the communication between city council and this board? Then we'll go to this question, what could improve communication between board and council members?
Yep.
I'll just say I agree that we should be more explicit about what communication we're asking about.
Right. Yeah, because you could get, we just are concerned about board and council members. Then,
And can I just clarify, Jack,
Sure.
your note says communication among board and council members, or should it be between the board and council members?
I would say
I was not an English major. I think
I would say between,
Yeah, between.
yeah. Okay. And then we'll have that after the question that asks, how would you rate the communication? Then we have number 11. What measure? What, Nina?
Just one other quick observation, which is in the way we have these questions structured in the draft, there are comment blocks after each one of these. And so my question is, are these leading questions really comment block labels for being after items that are in, like for number 8, where it says comment block? Do we want to just label the comment block with this other question? Or do we want the comment block to stay so they can be more free about it?
Patrick, that was from the last meeting. What was your discussion on all that?
Yeah, so in a number of places here, we said that there would be a comment block. In a few cases, we said section comment block. And that was generally, we were saying it would be multiple choice or Likert, and then we'd give them a free form response option to elaborate further. And we generally felt that that would be okay due to the smaller sample size here. We would actually be able to review the responses more closely than with a, few
Right.
100-person survey.
Right. So question 8, how would you rate the communication between city council and this board? There's a bunch of choices and then there's a comment block. Do we want to take this question, what could improve, and put that in front of the comment block? Or we want to just let people respond as they feel so moved? Do we want it to be more directed? I mean, we could label the comment block with another question.
I tend to feel that they're different questions. One is, how would you rate it? And elaborate on your rating. Then this one is more specific. What could improve? We're asking for specifically improvements.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay, we have guests. Okay, cool.
Stacy?
Yes. Oh,
At our
sorry.
last- I'm
uh-huh.
sorry. At our last meeting, we were talking about putting the open-ended questions 9 through 11, keeping them after the questions that required yes, no, or liker types responses. So what do we want to do now? Are we moving those questions up into the liker type questions?
That's what we had said we were going to do, because they're so aligned with what's in the Likert. And usually if your mind is in that genre, so to speak, that category, filling out the more open-ended question might be a little bit easier rather than going through the Likerts and then going back. Well, then what did I say up above when we were talking about this? If it's all together, it might be a little bit easier for the respondent to gel their answers a little bit. But that's my opinion. What do y'all think?
Yeah, the only one that we're really moving, I think, is that question number 9 up to following 7, and then 8 naturally, or the new 9, which is 10, naturally follows 8, and then it's not a big thing. I think I agree that just moving 9 up to 7, and I think that solves it.
Okay. All righty. Then we decided not to ask the question on diversity. I don't know. I don't know that they would be able to give us. I don't know. I'm knee deep in some diversity stuff now with a couple of clients, and so I'm torn between how to deal with it. I'm not sure if this group of people are the ones who could help us with that. I don't know. That's up to you guys. What do you all think?
Well, I mean, my view on this is if this is an area that we feel needs addressing, and that was the sense of the room that I got during our last conversation, then I'm hard pressed to think of why it wouldn't be useful to ask staff for their views. I mean, we're going to be asking other people, or we could be asking other people as well, but I guess I'm not seeing a downside to asking this question. I did make a proposal for a change of wording about this. But I think, if this is an area of concern for us, we should be getting input on it from as many sources as possible, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking them all
I tend
sorts
to
of
feel
things. Sorry, one last thought. We're asking staff all sorts of things over which they may themselves have no say whatsoever. But that doesn't mean that their perspectives aren't potentially useful.
Exactly.
Yeah, I tend to feel one of the slides in our presentation looks at the demographics of the boards. This is consistent with our work to this point, so why not get staff's perspective on it?
I agree. Which wording do you like better, though? First or second wording?
I like Nina's proposed revision because it clearly asks what measures the city could take, which I think is most useful if we're asking staff's perspective. Not other changes that could improve diversity, but what measures could the city specifically take?
Okay. All right, let's go with that then. Any other input on the diversity question, guys? Okay, seeing none, why don't we start back up at the top of the questions and let's get this thing finalized.
Before I go
Sorry.
up there, can I accept Nina's revised version?
I think so. It's what kind of nobody else is. Oh, Jack says yes, so I go with Jack. I go with Ted.
Yeah, we're at the point now we're just editing.
Just tell me to go.
We're editing it on the doc, so we just have one list here. I'm not going to move these questions because it'll cross up the formatting.
Yes,
so just note that as
that's
we go
fine.
back through.
Okay. All right. So Jack, did you see? I think I responded to your question over here. We don't have any real documentation as to what staff have been told or how they've been told. And I think this is part of what is part of the problem, that there is no standardization on how these staff liaisons are prepared for their jobs.
Yeah, I would agree. I've always said that the worst situation you can possibly put an employee in is to not let them know what's expected of them.
True. And I mean, in talking to there are some of them who I know particularly well, and in talking with them, they're just flying by the seat of their pants, basically, as far as trying to do what's best, trying to get the agenda moved forward if there is an agenda. So I'm just going to go through these based on what y'all said. If there's no question or anything, we'll just accept it for the way it is, i.e. question number 1, A and B. Question 2, duh, no duh. Question 3, were you given the opportunity? You had the appropriate training. Elise is saying on question B, change that to were you given the opportunity? Were you given appropriate training and knowledge, or education, knowledge, whatever?
Should I make that change?
You were given, you were provided.
No,
Yeah.
because the follow-up question assumes that, this thing goes in 2 parts, right? Did you come prepared for this? And then if not, is there training that would have helped you?
Well,
Or would help
even
you?
if you have a master's in group facilitation,
Right,
it
but
would still be nice.
But there are 2 different potential questions here. One is, did you already have the training you needed? Yes or no? If not, were you given the opportunity to get more training?
I see it differently.
Yeah, that's a different interpretation than I had.
And first of all, I see it as you were provided appropriate training. And then even if you were provided, what additional training do you need to better serve that board? I see that as differently than you did, Nina.
So the first question is, you were given the opportunity to review the board's charge prior to serving. In other words, boss said, hey, I want you to look this over and see what you think. And then they come back and say, well, XYZ, then you were given the appropriate training, education, knowledge, including facilitation skills to effectively serve this board. After you've seen the charge, because some of these folks have said they weren't real clear what that board's charge was, if I remember correctly. Or no, that was from the volunteers. But I think it's, there's a process that staff needs to have, both upper management and line staff, on how this is handled. Jack, what you got?
Yeah, I think as I'm now recalling the structure of this when it was created, Nina's interpretation of B is not the one I was using, but I think it is, in fact, what the intended question was about, which is, were you qualified to serve this board? Not, did you get training from anyone specifically for board service? Rather, do you feel that you were even qualified to fill the role beforehand, regardless of what the city provided you?
That's a different question.
Yeah.
It's very different. And I'm confused as to which way we would prefer it to be.
Well, I think we could ask both, right? Were you fully prepared, or did you need additional? And if so, were you given it? It's a 3-part question. Did you have all the skills you needed? If not, were you given the opportunity to get them?
And then what could you use additionally?
Right.
So, question A, you were given the opportunity to review the board's charge prior to serving in the role. Are we clear on that one? Is that the way it should be? I'm seeing nods. So then B, you were given appropriate training, education, and knowledge, including facilitation skills to effectively serve the board. Sorry, y'all, I've got a back problem. Does that read correctly for you?
No, my view is it should stay the way it was. You had the appropriate training. And then the follow-up is, if not, were you given the opportunity to acquire those skills?
I think the issue is that the word had is ambiguous here. Like had could mean you received from the city, you participated in.
That's a good point, Jay.
Would it be better to say already had?
Yeah,
Or you
that would help.
previously had.
I think previously had is good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
What about you have the appropriate training?
Well, because then they could say yes, because they did receive the training.
Well, what about at
I think this is fine, this revision.
you previously had the appropriate training, education, knowledge, including facilities? Okay. Then C is, if not, you were given the opportunity for training, education, knowledge, blah, blah, blah.
Are we asking these things as questions or making statements? Because it should be, if not, you were given the opportunity, not were you.
Okay, I might have read it wrong, but
No,
oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. Jack, you had a question or statement?
Yeah, I think there's some confusion here too now because we've got training / education / knowledge, which are different things. At least they can be interpreted differently. I think we're suggesting that they previously had knowledge and education, including facilitation skills. If not, were you given the opportunity for training?
I think what's missing here is all, the word all. You previously had all the appropriate training, blah, 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 that you needed. All the knowledge, all the training, all that. If not, were you given the opportunity to fill those gaps?
But in that case, in B, are you suggesting that that training came from the city? Or that
I
they
don't
got
think it
somewhere
matters.
else?
I don't think it matters where they got it from if they already had it.
Well, it's two different questions then. Because I would be curious if someone came into this blind and they got the opportunity to review the board's charge, but they had no education or knowledge that related to the job they were being asked to do. They still felt they could do it, but they had no education or knowledge or training from any source. But the city provided them some training to give them that capability. I just think the word training virtually implies the city provided it. Now, I don't think that implication is one we want to assume.
I think
I
the
think the
phrase
intent
here
of
is
the
given the
question is-
opportunity. So that might be city provided training or it might be some external source.
I mean, to my way of thinking, it doesn't matter where their training came from as long as they had the training for the role the city wanted them to perform, regardless of how they got it. But if they didn't have it, did the city give them the opportunity to get the needed training that they needed? Team training being a very broad term. And then if so,
So even part C,
What?
we don't care if it came from the city or not.
Correct. Because you could say that, they could say, hey, the Center for Nonprofits is giving this great workshop. It's a 3-day workshop down in Raleigh on how to facilitate contentious groups. I'd like to go down there and do it. Go for it. See you in 3 days. And they go down there and they get the training and they come back as a fully skilled facilitator. That would be great. But the city didn't give them the training. The city gave them the opportunity to take it, hopefully paid for it. But the city itself did not give them that training, one could say.
When I look at question C, I kind of wonder if we really want this to be an if not question. Wouldn't it be, are we interested in identifying whether the city provides ongoing training opportunities in general, regardless of whether you have the past experience, or is it only in the case where someone feels they're unprepared?
Oh, here's my opinion. I think that a lot of times these staff liaisons are given the opportunity to take on these staff liaison roles. It is an opportunity for them to up the ante on their skills and their reach into the community and their visibility with their peers, their upper staff, and the public. And if they do well, it bodes well for them career-wise. If they don't do well, it could be that it kills their career. And that's not fair if they were put into the role and the city did not support them with appropriate training. And it also bodes poorly for the board itself because that staff person doesn't have the appropriate training to help to facilitate moving their agenda forward or helping to ameliorate problems that they have within the board itself. So, I mean, we've all heard all kinds of horror stories on these staff liaisons. So I don't know, but I think we got to figure out something.
I think my concern is just I don't really like having these conditional questions in here that only apply to a subset of the respondents. So we might get more interesting insights by phrasing this as, take off if not. You were given the opportunity for additional training to effectively serve the board. Just making it shorter and applicable to everyone.
I think that's a good idea.
Change. Absolutely.
Because it could be that, it could be the opposite, that they were really good at what they were doing, and the city's giving them the opportunity to up the ante even more on their skill level.
So I just revised it as I was proposing.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so you have 3 questions now. You were given the opportunity to review the board's charge prior to serving in the role. You previously had all the appropriate training, education, knowledge, including facilitation skills to effectively serve this board. 3, you were given the opportunity for additional training to effectively serve this board. And the final 4, what additional training and or resources would help you better serve this board? And then the last one, you meet with the board chair regularly to discuss your role as staff liaison and what support help the chair needs. So Alan, you have a question statement?
Yeah, under A, can you raise that up again, Patrick? You were given the opportunity to review. I would say I'd rather see you reviewed the board's charge prior to serving on it. Yes or no? I mean, I would think that no one has to give you an opportunity. You either do it or you don't. You're aware of the charge or you're not prior to serving.
Well, that's a
I
good
mean,
point.
who's going to deny somebody
Right.
the review, the chance to review the board's charge before you're being asked to serve on it? I have a problem with the word opportunity there.
Yeah, I agree.
How the rest of you feel? Right?
Okay.
I like having it there. As a manager, I know that people on my team often don't know that that's a step that they can take or should take, or don't know that they're empowered to spend the time to do it when they have other tasks on their plates. So I have to be very explicit about, yeah, go ahead and take the time, read through this, do the training, whatever the case may be.
I'm
So I
surprised
want to know if
you hadn't, really. If you're asked to serve on a board or serve as a liaison to a board, I'd like to know what's the board's charge from council before I step in on the meeting.
I don't know if everyone's asked so much as given the role, assigned the role.
As signed, yeah.
Like if there's discretion involved, then sure. But if it's like we need somebody to be in charge of this and you're the best or only option, so you're now in charge of it.
For what it's worth, I would go with Jay. I think, providing the opportunity is it's the responsibility of whoever is making the assignment to that person.
The inverse would be you were denied the opportunity. I assume people
No, just that you weren't
take that
actively
on.
given the opportunity.
I'm sorry.
Just that you were not actively given it, that your supervisors did not bother to to say this is the charge of the board, review it before you go in there.
You're happy with the language there?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about instead of you were given, you took the opportunity to review the board's charge? Or just you reviewed the board charge?
I think we're splitting hairs here. Honestly, you had the opportunity. How about that? That's as neutral as you can get. You had the opportunity to review the board's charge.
That's fine.
It doesn't
fine
really
with that.
it doesn't really indicate to us whether or not they were encouraged to review the board's charge, which one would hope they were.
Right. And we don't want this. Yeah. Okay.
I like that.
Okay. All right. So you had the opportunity to review the board's charge prior to serving in the role. You previously had the appropriate. You previously had all the appropriate training, education, knowledge, including facilitation skills to effectively serve this board. That's
How about before
Can't
before beginning your role, you already had the appropriate blah blah blah.
Or you came to the role of liaison with all of the.
now that's a little different. Let's say it that way. I think Patrick could be a court reporter. You came to the role of staff liaison with all the appropriate training, education, knowledge to effective. Okay, that's good. You were given the opportunity for additional training to effectively serve this board. That's good. What additional training and or services or resources what additional training and or resources would help you better serve this board? And then that kind of outlier question, you met with the board chair regularly to discuss your role as staff liaison and what help or support the chair needs. Any more changes to that section?
Yes, I think we should increase the character count for D. 30 characters is nothing.
I agree with that. I'll just say we're doing 120 other places. Does that seem
right.
like a good
Change.
number?
Okay. What do I care? This is Jack and Ted and Elise's issue. Let's see. Okay, workload and efficiency. Your time staffing this board is well spent.
And Stacy, I did want to clarify for all of these where we say revise the Likert, we're saying replace yes, no with the Likert scale. From our last discussion, we felt that these questions in particular, where we added that comment, would benefit from a Likert scale response instead of yes, no.
Okay, did you have an idea? Hold on, I'm pulling up that chart. 1 second. Did y'all have an idea of which ones you wanted to use? Did you get that far? Let's see.
I would defer to what Elise proposes as the appropriate options to list.
Okay, I'm not seeing them, so
Yeah,
I think these would all range from strongly disagree to strongly agree.
yeah,
Okay.
they're all they're up at the top of the questionnaire, the 4 questionnaire.
Yes, that's right. And I'll just start to jump around. But our idea here was to do 4 from strong disagree to strong agree with no neutral
yeah, no
option to
neutral
force
option.
them to go
Okay.
one way.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Change that. Just, Patrick, just copy those 4 options underneath the question, just so when I go to it and clean this up, I know what they are. You don't have to worry about the, yeah, that's good. And then the same.
So for 4B, this was actually an item where we didn't come to consensus on whether this should be yes, no, or a Likert. So this is one where we should re-vote on which way we want this one to go.
Staffing this board interferes with your ability to complete other work not related to this board. Agree, disagree, somewhat disagree. I think I like the Likert because you got this, you can at least do strongly or somewhat, as opposed to just yes or no.
Just a quick reminder here that we are including comment blocks with these. So, you know, there may be some cases where a yes or no will suffice. I mean,
Does anyone?
I'm not sure that the nuance that you get out of the Likert here is going to tell us anything terribly useful. I mean, either this is a burden, you know, either it does interfere or it doesn't. How much, you know, I don't know. I think we might get a clearer outcome with a yes or no here.
I agree with Nina.
All righty.
I prefer the Likert.
Okay, raise your thumbs up if you want yes and no. Thumbs up if you want Likert. Oh, hell, it's going to be like the presidential election. It's a slim margin.
I count a majority for Likert.
I do too.
Okay.
I guess I have to go with the majority, or else I could be in a million lawsuits. So, okay.
You're worrying about lawsuits?
Just, I'm worried anytime if you don't agree with the
Don't
majority.
worry, I can't afford a lawsuit.
So let's go with
I also
Likert.
don't care enough to bring one.
Okay.
Can I just speak to it for a moment?
Sure, Jay.
Where I'm coming from with the Likert is when we look at like our report that we've prepared before, and we think about charting responses to understand the degree of sentiment, it's much easier to do with the Likert than interpreting the textual responses to get that nuance.
Hmm.
I'll just say that I thought that we were going to make a lot of these yes nos into Likerts. We left a lot of them as yes nos, so I think opportunities where I'm kind of ambivalent. I don't see harm in adding that additional option to capture more data where we at least thought it might be helpful.
Right. And I did think mixing it up a little bit keeps their brain focused. You don't get into this blah, 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 blah mode. Okay, the next
On this
question.
topic,
Yes.
and my preference with the Likert is to word the questions that have a pronoun in them from the first person. My time staffing this board is well spent. My role as board liaison is valued, and it's agree or disagree.
I agree with that. Does anyone object?
I agree
that I should
completely.
Yes, I agree. Jack agrees. Okay, so this board could be better served by another staff member. That's a yes or no. Supporting this board is an excessive use of your time. Y'all don't think that one should be a Likert?
Please see my
I'll
comment
just-
on this.
Yeah, Nina indicated that this one might be a duplicate. So if there's some particular nuance we're trying to capture, it's not clear what it is. So that's comparing this one D to A.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do y'all think it's a duplicate question? Shake your head yes, shake your head no.
Delete it.
What you
I
think, Jack?
prefer this one to the other one though.
Yeah,
Oh.
one or the other, not both.
Okay, so would we? I think there's consensus. We only need one. Do we prefer the language of A or D?
D.
D.
Can we just do thumbs for D? All right, I'm hearing D, but I'll phrase it as a my time or effective use of my time. Okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Your role as board liaison is valued and supported by your supervisors. Any changes to that one?
I would prefer that this one be a Likert.
I was wondering that too. Any objection to changing it to a Likert?
I somewhat agree.
Do you strongly agree
I
or
see
somewhat?
what you did there.
Okay. I Likert for that one. Your role as board liaison is valued and supported by your colleagues, yes or no? Or That could be a Likert, but I think yes or no is okay on that one. What do you think?
Again,
I
if
tend to
we're
find D and
providing a comment block, I think it's fine.
Okay. You receive helpful and actionable feedback from the chair and board members in connection to your work with the board.
Alan, you're muted.
Alan, go ahead and talk, but unmute yourself first.
On E, are we still talking about yours or my role as a board liaison? Making it consistent with all the others.
Well, we've got a thing going with the Likert and the yes and no's as to whether it's in first person or not. So, okay, that's fine. G, you receive helpful and actionable feedback from the chair and board members in connection to your work with this board. What if the feedback they receive is not helpful? I mean, you could get feedback, but it's not helpful.
There's the comment block.
Comment block.
Okay. All right. All righty. Okay. Then the number 5, what do you perceive to, okay. So question number 4, I think we're pretty clear on all those. 5, what do you perceive? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
Stacy, I'm sorry. I just want to say, because it is bothering me a little, why would D be a Likert but E is not? Should they both be, or can someone just explain why we would not make E Likert as well?
Well, I'm ambivalent on it. I'm in the middle neutral zone on this one.
I think
Because they
should
do
both-
have a comment they could say something, but then they might not answer yes or no at all and just put something in the comment block.
I think they should both be Likerts.
I'll go with
I just tend to feel
I agree.
Yeah, I
with
just
you.
tend to feel we might do some analysis here to compare the supervisor versus colleague relationships, and I feel like we'd be missing info there. So
Okay.
I would prefer to make them consistent.
Okay. Okay. What do you perceive the strengths and the challenges? I think those are pretty vanilla, correct? Any comments? And then number 7. Oh yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, and I'll just note here, Jack added that we weren't sure from our last discussion what to label the middle point, and we should make that decision today. Jack has proposed we use no opinion.
No opinion.
Which would,
Yeah,
I went around and around on this so many times about how to indicate this, because no opinion just could be not accurate at all. A person could have an opinion, but it isn't captured. I don't know. It's just tricky. I don't have a good answer.
Hold on, I'm looking at my Likert cheat sheet. You could say, if you wanted to go that, we could say neither agree nor disagree.
yeah, that's another option.
But I guess the
Sometimes see
question that I have there
unsure
is,
as an option.
I guess the question there is, what are we learning from that? I mean, no opinion. I don't. There are a bunch of
It's
reasons
possible
why a
that they
person
have no
could
idea
choose-
what a council priorities are.
I mean, maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't feel it's their in their purview. Maybe it's not in their, it's above their pay grade. I don't know. It's just really,
I think I don't know is a better,
I just don't know.
yeah, yeah, don't know.
But I
'Cause
wouldn't
that's-
put it in the Likert scale because it's not really,
Right, yeah, it should be off to the side.
Or that would be the neither agree nor disagree.
Well, no, but
that's
that's
different.
not what we're trying to get at. Yeah, it's not, it's, these are situations in which we talked about this last time. These are situations in which the staff liaison, the person answering it, really doesn't have the knowledge to answer the question. Really, it's not that they don't have an opinion. It's not that their opinion is neutral. It's that they cannot really answer the question based on, what their knowledge and experience is. So that's what we're trying to capture. So it's, it's not part of the Likert scale. It's
an alternative.
an alternative to the Likert, right? Yeah. So either don't know or not applicable or something like that.
Ooh, not applicable.
Yeah, except not applicable has, I think, the wrong connotations for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How about unsure?
Hmm.
I like unsure of what I've heard because I think it captures both. That's I don't know, or it could be they have some knowledge of it but can't make a determination.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm sure it's good.
I like it.
I really don't like, I'm sorry, I got kicked out again. I don't like not applicable. That I don't think we
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. We're centering on unsure.
Unsure implies doubt, and I think we really need an opportunity for someone to just say, don't know, it's above my pay grade, it's not part of my brief,
You could say uncertain or undecided.
but that implies there's
No.
a choice for them. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Maybe
would
don't
argue
know.
strongly for a clearer, not my thing.
I think I see us as settling on two wordings here, which is either unsure or don't know.
Mhm.
Do we have?
You
do we
can
wanna
have
do-
both of those there for one box. They could check that one off and have both of those unsure / don't know. Because it doesn't matter to us whether
Yeah.
they're unsure or they don't know, but it might matter to them that they don't want to say, I don't know, when they're really just unsure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to me, like, none of the questions we're asking here, like, you could conceive of questions that are like, oh, that's above my pay grade, but these questions, anybody in the community can have an opinion on.
Right.
And if I struggle to come up to agree or disagree, it's because I'm unsure.
Right. Okay. Any other comments on that?
What did we wind up with? So it's
So
unsure
it's
/
strongly-
don't know.
So it's strongly disagree, somewhat agree, strongly agree, or unsure / don't know.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Then number B is this board makes
Our intention.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. This board makes actionable recommendations. I don't know. Strongly disagree, somewhat disagree. Hold on. I
It's
can't.
the same.
Okay, same as above.
Yeah.
Strongly, okay. Number C, this board is integrated into the city's decision-making processes. Yep, okay, same Likert. This board's input is actively considered in the final decision-making processes of the city. And we'll put the Likert scale there. Alan, you have a question?
B again, I was thinking about this. After, can you, board makes actionable recommendations. I mean, if you're sitting in at the meetings, would you know, yes or no, that they're making, how would you not be sure of that or uncertain? How would you be uncertain?
Well, they might be making a suggestion which is illegal or which the council doesn't have the means to make happen. Or, I mean, they could make a recommendation that simply can't be implemented for some reason or another.
But they're still making the recommendations.
Right. So the key to
It may not
the
be
question is, are they
an
actionable?
appropriate recommendation, but you're still doing it. And you're asking them, are they doing it or not?
Well, the question is not whether they're making recommendations,
Well,
it's whether they're
I
making
don't know how you
action.
can be uncertain, though, is what I'm saying.
Well, okay, well, look at the reparations. They've made a lot of suggestions, and council hadn't dealt with them at all. Probably, I guess they will have to deal with the money request, but they haven't dealt with any of the others that they've made so far. So,
I mean, boards can make recommendations that turn out, that staff will know actually aren't actionable. It happens a lot. But the staff person may not have the legal expertise to be able to, or the knowledge of the budget to be able to say whether or not they know that for sure it's actionable or not.
Can we say the board makes recommendations to council?
Don't they all?
Whether they're actionable or not?
But isn't the point of a board to make recommendations?
That's what I'm saying.
So
I think
we,
to me, it's not about the legality, that aspect of it so much as like sometimes groups will gather and they will say, man, somebody should come up with a way to figure out what everybody in the city thinks about this, and then we could do this. And so they have an idea, but it's not an actionable recommendation. So I think even to have staff and possibly council take it under consideration and come back and say, well, we can't do it for this reason, I would still put that on there. That's still an action, taking it under consideration, evaluating it. I think the way it's worded is okay.
I'm not really questioning the wording. I'm questioning whether they're sure or don't know. And I'm asking, why wouldn't they know?
I would think a staff liaison that is apathetic or not well engaged with the board might not know.
I think there may be technical considerations that aren't something that the liaison needs to know to do the work that they're doing with the commission that may be pertinent by the time it gets to council or to whatever the intermediate step is.
And I don't see any harm in leaving that in there, the uncertain, I don't know.
Okay, I'll go with the consensus.
okay.
I'll just note to everyone, it is 7 now, but we are almost to the end. So
I was just going to say the very same thing. The current mechanisms for sharing information and updates between city council and the board are effective. And we've got the same Likert scale there. Any discussion? Jack likes it.
and while we were talking, I did reorder the questions based on our previous notes.
Okay,
So
thank
you'll
you.
see
Okay.
things in the right order with the final numbers.
Okay, aren't you just the slickest guy in town? Okay. All right, let's go with this. I will clean it up. I'm going to send it back out to you in the next couple of days. Hold on, Nina.
What?
And just give it one more quick, lick and a prayer. Nina, what did you have?
I think we did have some comments to resolve on number 9, which is the only question we haven't reviewed in this
Oh, I'm
session,
sorry.
so
Okay, go ahead.
let me see if I can drag this out a little bit.
So these are my comments here, which I think that it's worth getting a little bit more specific about the meaning of excellent, satisfactory, poor, and non-existent, which I think should be changed. I would define them: excellent, productive, meaningful, actionable. In other words, there's a dialogue that makes everyone feel heard and respected. Satisfactory, functional, useful, the minimum required. Oh, there was more on that at one point. I don't know what happened there. Poor, infrequent, incomplete, unconstructive, parties feel misunderstood or ignored. And
So for the sake of our discussion, I've copied your suggestions in, Nina, so now we
I
can
see.
see them as the expanded version, or we can decide to keep them as one words. It's up to the group.
I had something, I don't know what happened with my comment there. I had something else in under satisfactory. Parties feel heard.
Well, I'll just say I personally am fine with adding these additional descriptions, but I don't mind simplifying it either. I'm fine to keep this additional description if we think that would help the responses we get. But I'm interested to hear what everyone else thinks.
Gentlemen, what else? What do y'all think?
I think the additional descriptions are fine.
Jack?
Yeah, I would agree with Ted and Nina. I think these are good.
Okay. Anybody? And Jay, could you hear what we were saying?
Yeah, I'm fine either way, really. If we do include the longer descriptions, I don't understand what minimum required means under satisfactory.
The idea there is that it's the bare minimum.
Put bare minimum then instead of minimum required.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then none, lack of communication means parties feel unheard and disrespected. Okay, so any other comments?
I'll just say this resolves all of the comments we have on the document. The one we didn't address is at the very top. Jack asked if we have a document of the duties of city staff, and I forget if we ever got that back, but that's the one open question, which is separate than finalizing this.
We don't, and each of these staff members, each of these staff liaisons probably has a very different job description because they're not all the same. It's not like each one of them is the administrative person in each of their departments. They're all different people, different roles already within those departments. So the staff The job description would be very different for each one of them. And no, we don't have even one.
Okay. Well, I think with that, I think we accomplished our primary goal for this meeting. So thank you, everyone.
Yay, yay, yay. Oh, look.
Thank you.
You're so clever. All right, guys. I'll get oh my gracious me. Yes. Thank you very much. And you'll see something from me in your inbox here in the next few days, and have a safe and happy holiday season.
And before we go, Stacy, I just wanted to remind everyone we are going to be presenting to City Council on January 23rd and to the full formal council meeting. We will have a regular meeting of this group prior to that, so we can, work out any last minute logistics. But I know that Elise indicated she was already working on the presentation and how to cut it down for the reduced time we'll have available for
She's
council.
basically has to cut it in half. So she's working hard. Okay, guys. Thank you very, very much. Bye.
See you in the new year.
Bye. Happy
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays.
everyone.
Patrick, thank you. Great
Yep,
meeting.
thank you, Stacy. That was
Talk
a
to
good
you
meeting.
soon. And send me can you send me this chat from tonight?
The chat transcript.
Yeah. I think, wasn't there a document in there I needed to see?
There
Oh,
is
no, I
the
think I
staff-
downloaded that one. Okay, never mind.
Okay, yeah, the only new thing I added was the staff liaisons stock, which is on the agenda if you need to reference
Okay.
it.
All right, that's good. Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.